Hi everyone, this is Gary Wilson and welcome to this week's live webinar for the Investor Agent Training Program and also for those who are in the Flipping for Profits program and Rental Profits program. We just did create the program for turning rental problems into real estate profits. That's basically about managing properties, and the editing is done and it's in the middle of being published now. And of course, you guys will all get a free copy of that book, which is actually already published. It's a training program the publishing is being completed. So if you'd like that book, if you have your own properties or you've entertained the thought of managing someone else's, definitely read that book. Obviously, it's free for you as a member here, but it gives you real life examples of what happens. It's not just a laundry list of all the things you should do. We actually give you real world examples of what happens in that business. Again, because we want you to have the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So look for that. If you do have a strong interest in that, please let us know so we can send you that information. Any case, in the last couple of months, literally it's been about 3 months now, we've been going over marketing campaigns. I believe we started back at the end of January. And we've covered, I believe, just about every marketing campaign that we advocate. And that's a lot of them. I think there's about 17 campaigns. 17, yeah, I think there's 17 that we advocate and that we actually teach because we've all done them and we know they all work. So what I want to do tonight is I'm getting ready to go over the classroom scenario again. We haven't done this since last September, so it's been quite a while. And the classroom scenario is a 4-part series. In other words, it's going to take 4 webinars to go over it. That's what we did in last September. Went into October, of course. We're not going to start that until next week. The reason is I want to make sure everybody knows that ahead of time so they can clear their schedules to be online the next 4 weeks. The webinar dates, I don't know that they've been published yet, but next week the webinar will be on Tuesday. The week after it will be on Wednesday, and I'm not quite sure of the following weeks. I'd have to get back to you on the weeks of May 16th and 22nd. But we're going to go over that. It's going to take 4 weeks. So what I want to do tonight is I want to review the marketing campaigns we've gone over. Not just review them. I'm just going to go over them briefly. But more importantly, I want to show you what we talked about the last few weeks, which is the fact that you can combine these with each other. Some of these campaigns actually work very well together. And I want to go over that. I want to spend more time on that tonight. So I'm going to go over the campaigns, just real brief, high level, bullet item. And so they kind of remind you of what they're all about. And more importantly, show you how they can be combined together. So first things first, number one is if you're new to the program since late January, what you ought to do is go back to the webinar library. It's on the website, on the database of all the webinars have been cataloged by subject type. And go back, probably the first one we went over would have been the booklet, I believe, and then the workshop, then the letter. And then after that, we went over just about everything. Everything that we have, we went over since then. So there's a lot of material, a lot to learn. Again, you don't have to learn everything, but I want you to go over them so you can pick the marketing campaigns that you'd like to focus on, okay? And I'll give you a big hint here. If you've picked more than 3, that's too much. Okay, you should never really pick more than 3. Very rarely should anybody be able to do 4 at a time in management. I'll give you an example tonight of 4 that may work together. Okay, so let's get to it, and I'm going to keep. I'll stop every few minutes to go back to the question box to see if you have questions and to answer them. Okay. All right, first things first. In the material, one of the first things we recommend is that you do join a local investor club. I recommend RIA because I'm a member of RIA. I've also been a member of ACRE, and they're both very much alike. Okay, they follow the same format, and they both actually are members of the same parent organization. It's just that RIA has really taken off in the last, I'd say generation. Back in the 80s, ACRE was the big one. ACRE was it. ACRE is American Congress of Real Estate, and RIA is Real Estate Investors of America, okay? So in any case, again, the point of joining the investor clubs is not necessarily to get investors as clients. You can do that, but a lot of times they're the ones who are just saying, well, just go find me a good deal, okay? And they can take a lot of time and a lot of your time, that is. So, however, what we do recommend you join the clubs for is to get access to all of the vendors, the contractors, plumbers, electricians, also lenders, insurance people, inspectors, you name it. You can do a very good job of having those people pre-screened because many other people have used them, and you can get references on them. And your investors are going to want to ask you typically from time to time, hey, who can I get to replace a roof, or who can I get to do some plumbing? Now you can give them names of people who you've heard been referred to, and you always make sure you tell them this is you're not necessarily endorsing these people. It's just these are the people you've heard who have done a good job. Okay. Now, having said all that, you can from time to time get investors from the investor clubs, and sometimes who they are, they're the ones who tried it and didn't do so well, and they want to really do it well, and then you come along with the right tools and information and helping them get inventory, and you can take an investor who's tried and failed and help them be successful. Okay, that's investor clubs. By the way, an investor club technique can be done jointly with the workshop technique and also the classroom technique. And the reason is when you find people at the investor clubs who have not done well or they have tried and failed, you can invite them to your own workshop, okay, or your own classroom if you choose to do the classroom scenario. And throughout the month of May, you'll hear me describe that in detail, and I hope some of you will choose to do it. We've had a few students actually do it, and it does work very well. Okay, that's investor clubs. Next on the list was Craigslist. Okay, and Craigslist we just went over recently with Beverly. Thank you, Beverly, very much for going over Craigslist with us. And in Craigslist, you learned that even if you don't have your own listings to advertise, you can advertise HUD properties. HUD properties are open listings, and you don't have to be the listing agent to advertise them. It's not like other listings where you can advertise other people's listings, but you need to ask their permission first. Okay? With HUD properties, it's understood that they're government owned. Actually, we own them. We, the people, own the properties. And as such, while a listing agent can list them and get the listing side of the commission, any other agent can advertise to get buyers. So that's one great technique. We've had a number of students use it successfully, and it was one of our all-time favorites over the years. I don't really have any other method that you would combine that with. It's just something you would do. And again, you want to advertise on Craigslist always on Saturdays and Sundays. I know you'll want to do it during the week, but a lot of agents are not advertising on Saturdays and Sundays. So that was gone over 3 weeks ago with Beverly. So look for the webinar that was 3 weeks ago, and it'll have information on the Craigslist. The week before that, we had Jody on, and we went over Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Okay, and without going into a lot of detail, you can watch that webinar and get all the information on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. The three can be used in conjunction with each other. In other words, if you let's say you have a Facebook post, you can put a little 140 character tweet together to drive people to your Facebook post. Okay, you can also, if you have a special report you put out on LinkedIn, you can drive people from Facebook to your LinkedIn post, or if I'll give you another example. You can combine it with blogs and YouTube videos. Okay, so let's say you create a blog, which is easy to do. It's just basically you writing almost like a little essay on any particular subject. And remember, you have access to my blogs. You can use any blog I've ever written. You can make it your own. It's just at the very bottom you've got to say, give credit to the author, who is me. It's not my rule. It's just the rule of what we call republishing. So in any case, same thing with a YouTube. So you can create a YouTube video of you walking through a property, going over the financials of the property while you're walking through it. Create your YouTube. You can link to that, okay, from your website. You can put it in an email. You can also put it in a tweet. You can put it in LinkedIn, and you can of course put it on Facebook, right? So that's an example of another combination of multiple techniques. So you can use blogs and YouTube videos and promote them through LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Let me go down the list. Sorry. I'm going to make sure I keep up here. It's Facebook, LinkedIn. Next, we have churches. This is one of the ones that I went over. Probably, I'd say back in late in February or March. I can't remember the exact date. But generally, churches, you can advertise in a church bulletin. And again, you don't want to just put your photo in there with your contact information. That's no way to advertise in a bulletin. What you want to do is give them a link to one of your web pages where you offer free reports, or you offer a free search for properties, or you offer a free home evaluation. Always make an offer and always give them something to do, something for them to get engaged with. Okay? Because if you just put an ad out there with your name and contact information, you don't give them anything to do. You increase the odds of them reaching out to you by giving them something to do. Okay? That's churches. Let's see. Next is grocery stores. Okay? And by the way, you can, if you look at doing joint ventures and also workshops, they can be combined with restaurant advertising too. All right. I'm sorry. Next, grocery store advertising, which is next. By the way, you can combine it with church advertising in a bulletin and also restaurants. So in any case, grocery stores, just a brief recap on that. This is where you can create a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, make it look nice on your computer, and you no longer do the tear off tabs where people can come in and tear off a tab with your phone number on it. That's old school. What you want to do is put right on the bulletin that goes on a grocery store bulletin board, definitely your email address, your phone number, and your website. And on there, you can advertise a particular property. All right. And if you do that, by the way, you always want to put in there, again, some other offering, because maybe they don't like that property, but you can say, even if this property is not for you, you can click on this website and get a free report of HUD properties in the area, or a free report of foreclosures, or do a free search for properties that they do want. So again, it's another example of how you can combine multiple techniques. Okay, next on the list was restaurants. Okay, now if you remember what we talked about with restaurants, there's multiple things you can do inside of a restaurant. You can do the obvious, which is leave a stack of business cards up on the counter by the register. Most restaurateurs will let you do that if you're a frequent visitor, frequent patron of the restaurant. But also, if there's the type of restaurant that's more like a cafe or a diner, they'll have placemats that have advertising blocks on the placemats. And you want to do the same thing there that you do in a church bulletin. Same kind of thing. Doesn't have to be big, but definitely, your picture, your contact information. But instead of just leaving it at that and saying something like "I'm number one," or listing your designations, AVR and CRS, that stuff, they don't even know what that is. Don't waste space doing that. What you want to do is utilize the space more profitably by making an offer. Free search of homes, free home evaluation, free list of foreclosures, free list of HUD homes. There's a number of possibilities you can put on there, but also, let's say you do have your own workshop up and running and you're doing it every month. This is one of the biggest ways you can combine these efforts. If you want to get more people at your local monthly investor workshop, put on the placemat ad the date, time, and location of your workshop. Now, if it's something that's it's occurring every single month, you can say this workshop is held the third Thursday of every month at your local library, at your local church, whatever the case is, okay? So now you're using multiple techniques to drive people to your workshop. So now think back to the grocery store bulletin. Can you see how you can put something in there? Even though you may want to advertise a property on a grocery store bulletin, you could not only advertise that, but also advertise any free reports you have or free searches, and if you have your own workshop up and running, advertise the location, the day of the month, and the time of your workshop. Okay? And going backwards again to the church bulletin, same thing there. It's one more thing you can put in the church bulletin. And so you definitely want to have that in every church bulletin every single week. And you want to do that for a year. Have that constantly in there that you have a workshop coming up. And then you have some degree of control over who's coming to your workshop, at least with the church bulletins. Not so much with restaurants and grocery stores, other than geographic control. In other words, the people frequenting a restaurant or a grocery store in your area are typically going to be residents of that area. So you have some control, but it's more geographic control and not demographic control. So in any case, what I want to do right now is I want to take a quick pause. So let me go back here to the question box, as I just gave you a real big handful of stuff there. And let's see if we've got any questions. Hang on one second. Okay, so far, let me go back here. Hang on one second. Where's the question box? I just want to make sure. Okay, everybody seems to be okay. It looks like, Katina, you had a quick little bit of a dilemma on your audio. It could have been on your computer, or it looks like everything's okay on this end, and everybody else seems like they're okay. But what I want to ask right here is, guys, I want to get your involvement. So just based on what I just told you so far, and let's just use the last segment: advertising in church bulletins, advertising in grocery stores, and advertising in restaurants. All very inexpensive and pretty effective, but not just using those techniques in and of themselves, but combining them with your own local workshop, for example, okay? Or combining them, or let's just leave it at that for a second. So I want to see what you guys have to say about that, what questions you might have. Okay, here we go. There's, okay. I can see the value. Here's the question. I can see the value in advertising in the church bulletin, in the grocery store bulletin, and also in the placemats on a couple of local restaurants. However, I'm not quite sure about the workshop. I haven't done one. Should I do one? And is this how I advertise it? Okay. A couple of things here. Yes, I think you should do a workshop. I would say more of our students have done workshops than any other technique. And the reason it's so important, so valuable is, if you think about a workshop, your interaction with the people you're with is more direct and it's more immediate. It's actually one-to-one, or one to a few people, 1 to 6 people, 1 to 20 people, whatever the case is. The bottom line is, it allows the people, the participants in the workshop, to achieve, know you, like you, and trust you much more quickly, which means you have more people coming up to you saying, hey, I really like this stuff and I want to do this. Can you work with me? All right. So the answer is absolutely yes. Everybody, I believe, should do a workshop. You can do other techniques at first until you feel more comfortable, because it does require you to be up in front of people. Now, as far as advertising it, yes, I recommend using these three techniques to advertise it. However, that's really, I would say those are secondary sources of advertising. The primary source of advertising your first workshop is you communicating with your existing sphere, okay? And that was this whole technique was gone over back in January. So if you haven't listened to the January recordings, one of the very first things we do is we have you go over your database in detail, ask the questions: how do you know them? What do you know about them? And how likely are they to invest? And rank them 1 to 10, 1 being least likely, 10 being most likely. And you start off by inviting those people, to your first workshop. You start with the 10s, see who you can get to show up, then go to the 9s, same thing, then go to the 8s, same thing. Almost never do you go below the 8s. I mean, you can go down 7, 6, 5, but usually people get enough people coming in just from the 8s, 9s, and 10s. So that's your first workshop. Use the people that you already know to come to have the people that you already know come to your workshop. And then going forward on the workshops, we use meetup.com pretty aggressively. It's very inexpensive. That's also gone over in more detail in that particular webinar. But again, and just briefly, for about $15, you can set up your own Meetup account, create your own group, your own identity, and by using keywords and key phrases, it's all part of the program that you use. You can target specifically the types of people that are going to be showing up to your workshop. Okay. So in any case, so back to your question, that's kind of a loaded question and a lot of detail on that answer there. But yes, I recommend a workshop. I think you should use meetup.com to advertise it. We teach you that in that particular section, in that module. And these other 3 techniques are great little, I would call them alternate or secondary techniques to advertise and promote your particular workshop. So let me do another quick pause here, because that answer ended up being quite a bit of information. So let me let you digest that, and let's see if we have any questions here. So let me go back here. Hang on one second. Okay. Okay. This one is okay. This is only my second webinar, and I have only done one module. My knowledge base is not all that huge at this point. When would you suggest that I try a workshop? And what would be a good starter topic for a workshop? And this is from Jared Nolan. Hey, Jared, how you doing, buddy? Okay, Jared, you're going to have to go through 3 more modules, modules 2, 3, and 4. Before you, in module 4, you'll get all of the marketing techniques, all the marketing campaigns. And then what I would do, Jared, is go through those first, just listen to that particular audio-visual module that comes with that, and also read the written material that comes with it. And then once you know for certain you want to do a workshop, if you go back in to late January on the database, you'll see that the webinars are cataloged and stored by subject matter. You can pull that one down, download it on the computer, and watch it, or strip off the audio and listen to it, and then you'll have a lot more information. So back to your question, a couple things. Yeah, you won't be able to do anything right now. In fact, you're going to know once you go through module 2, you're going to be a lot more educated and informed as far as knowing how to work with investors. In fact, that module I will go over twice, at a minimum of 2 times. I mean, Margaret, would you agree that second module with all the calculators and the 13-step sequence of how you actually work with the flipper and how you actually work with the renter, or excuse me, someone buying rentals, Jared, that information is absolutely vital. And again, that's in module 2. And when you master that, your confidence level is going to go way, way up. Okay. Now, in any case, back to your second part of your question, what would be a good starter topic? So, Jared, what I do is when I first started, I would take actually some of the forms and the cash flow worksheet and some of the rehab forms that come to you in your material. I would print those off, and I would take them to your first workshop. And I would also take samples of properties and let the people in the workshop practice on the forms using the sample properties, because you want to get those folks engaged, get them involved, get them rolling up their sleeves and actively participating in the workshop, because ultimately what you want to do is get them to open up and be comfortable speaking freely and openly about their current investing activities. You know, what are they doing? What do they need help with? What are they struggling with? What's working? And the best way to do that is to get them involved. It's almost cathartic. They're physically involved in the workshop. Works like a charm. You could also I always bring in, Jared, some article, either from the paper or from online, some recent posting that's relevant to investing. And there are hundreds of them out there. I mean, you just Google real estate news and you'll get page after page after page, blogs and articles and all types of things. And you can even use my blogs too. My blogs and articles, they're open, they're available for your use. Okay. But what I would do is I would start off the workshop, Jared, going over whatever article you brought in or material from the web. Maybe it's a report on foreclosures. Maybe it's a report on rentals in the area. Go over that, spend about 5 minutes, and then have them get together in table format, round table format, discussing their current activities. Vitally, vitally important, because you're creating a community atmosphere. You're not charging any money, and you're not selling your listings at that workshop. It's all about building your community. Okay, so more to it than that, Jared. But great, great question. Listen, this is Margaret. Margaret says absolutely, and it takes a little time to digest it all. Thanks, Margaret. So Margaret was responding, everyone, to the question about reviewing Module 2 multiple times. I mean, Module 1 you can review multiple times, and you should, but Module 1 is uh, more academic. The skills are more academic. So once you learn what's in Module 1 and you learn those tools and use them, it's like riding a bike. You never forget. Module 2 is combined with uh, academic skills and behavioral skills. The academic skills, again, you'll learn quickly. You'll learn the cash flow formula, the cash flow worksheet very quickly. But the behavioral skills, that's what you use when you're actually working with the investor in the field, the 13-step process. That's what takes practice. And that just, boy, I cannot emphasize that enough. I know for me, it probably took me about a month to get comfortable with that. I knew it intellectually, but it took me a month to know it experientially, and that's the big difference. When you understand something experientially, it's more ingrained in your subconscious, and you're a lot more comfortable with it. So thank you, Margaret, for sharing that. I appreciate that. Okay, let me give you guys a second to catch up and look at your notes and make sure they're organized, and we're going to continue on here in just about a minute. So hang on one second. Okay, let's see. Where are we? We were grocery stores, restaurants, churches. Okay, next one, guys, is local publications. And by the way, I know that I'm moving fast through this, but this is more of a review webinar, and again, it's to get your wheels spinning and get you to think creatively and imaginatively about how these different techniques can be combined together. I'm just giving you the most obvious combinations. You may come up with your own combinations, and if you do, if you wouldn't mind sharing that in the webinars, that would be great. So in any case, back to the subject. Let's look at local publications. When we use local publications, it's very important that you stick with the format. Only use your local green sheet, penny saver. Every municipality, every county typically has small local community-oriented publications, not the big newspapers, not the New York Times, not the Baltimore Sun or the Washington Post, not the LA Times. Those are way, way, way too big. You really just want the local publications that normally the consumers can get for free by simply going into the grocery stores. Okay, those are the publications we're talking about. In most parts of North America, and again, we've done this in the U.S. and Canada. You'll find them in the grocery stores. They're either green sheets or penny savers. And what you want to do is you can post ads in those local publications at a fraction of the cost that it costs you to put in the big newspapers. The big newspapers have just really, man, they're just, again, they can work. I don't want to tell you they don't work. They can work, but there's so many other techniques that work much better. It just ends up being, it doesn't make the cut. We don't include it in our list of marketing that we promote and suggest you use. And the main reason is it just doesn't cut the mustard. It's just not as profitable as these other techniques. So local publications are profitable. They're very inexpensive, and you can put an ad in there for just 1 week or 4 weeks, or sometimes 10 weeks or a quarter, sometimes for 6 months and even an entire year. And I don't necessarily recommend putting an ad in there for an entire year. However, what I do suggest is you always want to advertise properties for sale in the local publications, the local community publications, particularly if they're investor properties. Okay, and in that ad, in those ads, there's fewer restrictions on these ads. So in your ad, you can also put in an offer. You can say, hey, even if this property is not for you, visit www.markettesta.com and get any number of free reports. And remember, on our website, there's a number of free publications you guys can use. In fact, I think there's like 8 of them. Okay, there's one of our students right now, Glenn, is using the one for the free guide for buyers. Okay, he's also, I think, a free guide for sellers. Well, they're both out there. The point is, they're free. They're free for you, and you should give them free to your clients or your prospects. Now, back to the local publication, you could put that in there in the ad. You can not only advertise the property or any particular property, again, including HUD. If you don't have any listing your own to advertise, you can advertise the HUD property. And in there, put an ad to drive them to your website where they enter their name and email address to get the free book or free publication or free report or free guide, whatever the case is. It's an awesome, awesome technique. By the way, you can use local publications in conjunction with your postings in churches, church bulletin boards, grocery store bulletin boards, and restaurant advertisements. Okay, so you can, it's just another way to combine these efforts. But I love local publications. Also, if I have rentals that are available, I will advertise in there all my available rentals, all my vacancies. Okay, and you can even advertise. Well, let's just keep it at that. Advertise properties for sale. Always offer something for free, something for them to do, and also you can advertise rentals, vacancies. So, in any case, speaking of rentals, another way you can combine efforts is back to the restaurants. You can also ask the proprietor, the owner of the restaurant, if they will be willing to create a set of coupons for you that advertises, buy one meal, get one free, or buy a meal and get a dessert for free. Or any number of things that's good for the restaurant that they've tried and they know works, and give them to you. And what you can do is use them to attract good tenants. You can tell your existing tenants, hey, if you bring in another applicant, they end up checking out, they pass screening, they become one of our new tenants, we will give you a free restaurant coupon. Okay, buy one meal, get one free. You can also use it for them to give to their friends that they're referring to you. It's just a number of things you can do by utilizing your local restaurants, and it's very, very inexpensive. The coupons, by the way, are actually free for you. Okay, so in any case, that's local publications. Now the next one is the booklet. Now the booklet is obviously, that's one of the ones I go over in the market centers in the free class that I put on. And the reason I go over that one is it's not only is it powerful, but it's also easy to instruct on in a classroom setting. And I can hand out an actual booklet, let everybody look at it, and get a lot more. You guys can have a lot more input, and also it makes you feel like you can actually do that. And I hope that you do it, and you should do it. But the booklet is a great technique to get buyers. And the thing I love about booklets is it's a very targeted technique. In other words, you don't broadcast that. You don't do broadcast mailings. You don't send out hundreds and thousands of booklets. You pick particular groups of people based on vocation, because we know for a fact that dentists, for example, who've been in practice for 3 to 5 years are typically looking for their own building that they no longer have to rent. They can now own it, and it may, in fact, they may want to have some additional rentable space there to help offset their costs, help offset their overhead. They may rent one additional space to a massage therapist, for example, and another one to a natural supplement provider, something like that. But the bottom line is, we know for a fact that chiropractors and dentists who've been in practice for 3 to 5 years are more likely than others to be interested in looking at a new property and purchasing it for themselves. So in any case, I love the booklet. It is a standalone technique. However, if you ever want to join efforts with another agent, and their profile is more like a high I, you can have them do a workshop, or you could do the booklet, and you can also do the letter, which is the next technique I'll talk about in a moment, and then have your high I partner, I on the disc profile that is, be the person to go out on listing appointments. So you bring in the buyers, by using a booklet. You attract the sellers by using the letter, but have your partner actually go on the listing appointments. Okay. Um, you can have them go on the appointments to meet the buyers too if you want to, but you at some point you've got to get used to working with people, even if you're very low I. And a booklet is a great soft touch technique. It's not direct contact. It's a non-contact marketing technique. However, once you start sending booklets out, you do want to go visit the recipients. You want to visit the people you've been sending the booklets to, visit them in person, and always follow up in person with them, or over the phone at a minimum. We recommend after the second or third month, go visit them in person. So, in any case, so using the booklet, let's say you're teaming up with another agent. Again, you could be the person who's doing this type of work because it's non-contact, sending out booklets and letters, and have your partner be the person who's out meeting the folks and going on the appointments. Okay, that's a great way to combine those two. Now, since we talked, and by the way, for those of you who are new, again, the booklet is what we go over in the classroom, and we do have a webinar just on that subject, and I believe it's back in late January. It's all, again, cataloged by subject matter. So look for the booklet. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend it. And think in terms of how you can use it in combination with other factors. Because remember, once you get your buyers, your MLS is typically not going to supply more than 1/3 of your buyers' properties that they buy. The other 2/3 come from the next technique, which is the letter. Okay, so the letter is designed to be used to send to specific owners of specific properties that you can sell, that you have demand for. And guys, don't worry, we're going to take a quick breather here at the end of, once I go over the letter, we'll take another breather so you can catch up and ask questions. And also remember, you get the recording the next day. So if you feel like you missed something, go over the recording and you can stop it or pause it anywhere along the way so you can stop and take notes and then restart it. That's a beautiful thing about these recordings. Repetition is not only the mother of learning, it's the mother of success. So you definitely want to listen to these again and repeat it. In any case, back to the letter. The letter, again, is designed to send the specific owners of specific properties that you can sell, or specific types of properties, okay? So you send that letter out, and when people respond to you, they are now prospects. So they're not cold leads or prospects because they have obviously what you want. In any case, the letter, I've always loved the technique because it does combine well with the booklet, which is a good non-contact buyer technique. Also, you could potentially you could use a letter for other purposes too. In fact, it's a very adaptable technique. What I mean by that is you can use the letter to find people who are going through foreclosure, through bankruptcy, through probate, which is that someone is deceased, through divorce, that's family court. And those are great techniques to find inventory for people who want to flip homes. But also you can use it to find people who own investment properties, typically rental properties, and they may want to sell. You don't know that because they're not advertising it and they're not putting in the MLS. So you find out who they are by looking at your county tax assessment database. And if you know you have demand for a 3-unit building, you find all the 3-unit buildings in your particular area, zip code, if your investors, wants to invest in a certain area. And by the way, the letter technique also was gone over back in the colder months of probably February. So if you want to get a lot more detail, I highly suggest you pull that webinar down and listen to it. That's got everything you want to know on it, because it goes through one example of how you use your county's court records and also your county tax assessment database. Awesome technique to get inventory for your flippers and your landlords who buy rentals. Okay. All right, let me do a quick pause here, guys. I want to make sure you guys have a chance to catch up and ask any questions. So I'm going to look through the question box here and see who's typed them in. And if you haven't yet and you want to, go ahead and type one in now. Okay, let's see. Okay, So here's one. Gary, I'm interested in using the letter, and what I'm wondering is how do I use it to find people who I know would be potentially good owners of properties that will make good flipping, to have good flipping potential. Okay, and back to what I was describing a moment ago, that the answer is the letter, the way it's written, is exactly the way it needs to be written to use with almost any type of seller who's in distress. So let's take the example of someone who's going through a divorce. If you notice, that letter doesn't say anything in there at all about their divorce. You don't mention it because they already know they're going through a divorce. They don't have to be reminded of it. What you're doing is you found them on the family court records where they had a filing against them. Somebody's basically, it's a lawsuit. The spouse is suing them. They're taking them to court. Okay, suing them for divorce. So, in any case, you find them, you can use the same letter to send to the address of the plaintiff and the defendant. So if you look at a court case, any filing, you'll have the plaintiff's name and address, and you'll have the defendant's name and address. And typically, in a divorce, you'll find that one of the addresses is different, or both addresses are different. If they're still at the same address, yes, that can happen. People could stay living together for a few months until they get their affairs in order. But you write them, you send them the letter. Now, the reason I mentioned that particular group is at some point, somebody's probably going to be selling the house, and someone else is probably going to be buying another house. So you could potentially have two sales there, not to mention a potential buy side, because whoever's selling is going to be looking for something to buy, perhaps, right? So that's an example of how you can use that to find inventory for people who are flipping homes, because that will be considered a distressed sale. You might be able to get a good deal for your investor. Same thing with probate. Someone who's going through probate is going through probate because there's been a death in the family, and the siblings who inherited the house may not want the house because they could be living California, Maine, and Texas, and the house just happens to be in Indianapolis. And none of the siblings, they all have full-time jobs. They can't take away and take care of the affairs, so they just want to sell the house. All right. The other two obviously are foreclosures and bankruptcy thing. They were what we consider distressed sales. By the way, the letter is also very adaptable for use with FSBOs and expireds. Okay, and Glenn, we just customized a letter for him the other day to be used for FSBOs. So he's going after the FSBO market. In any case, I hope that answers the question. So let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next subject, which is having your own website. We definitely highly recommend you have your own website. Now, most of you are Keller Williams agents. Some of you are not. Either way, even if you have a website that's provided to you by your brokerage company, that's okay. They're generally pretty generic. They're also cookie cutter. They're templates. And every other agent in your business is going to have, in your office, in your company, is going to have the same looking website. Okay. And remember, one of the hallmarks of success is you being able to set yourself apart from the crowd. If you're going to look like everybody else and act like everybody else, you're going to get the same results as everybody else. You want better results than the average person. Okay. So you got to set yourself apart. One way to do it is to have your own website. They're very easy to develop. And Paul just went over that last week. That was last week's webinar. He was having audio troubles. I'm not sure what the heck was going on, but we got the whole thing recorded. So we recommend you set up your own small custom website. Very, very affordable, right? Almost no money at all. You can use WordPress to create all the content for the website. Again, you start off with the template, but you've got literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of templates to choose from, not just the 5 or 10 that you're given from your company. Still use your company's website for traditional real estate, but create your own custom website for your investors. And you can create unique pages for promoting your own listings that you have, or HUD listings if you'd like to do that. We can also create unique pages, media pages for YouTube videos and things like that. You can also do, create your own webinar. You can do podcasts. You can you can do Google Hangouts. There's a number of things you can do that you can link to and promote from your website. Not to mention promote your own reports and blogs and all of that type of thing that you're not normally getting on your websites from your brokerage company. Okay, so listen to last week's webinar, and you'll get a lot more information on creating and building your own custom website. Okay, speaking of blogs, we've mentioned blogs now a couple of times. Actually, real quick, let me check. I think we just had another question come in. Let's see. Okay, this is from Melanie. Melanie says, how often do you mail these people and for how long? Okay, so Melanie, the letter goes out. It depends on so if you're sending the letter to owners of rental properties, you would send that letter out every month for 12 months or until they respond to you. Okay, once they respond, they're a prospect. You no longer need to mail them the letter. Now, as far as the people, you always want to make sure you have a predefined specific group of people that you know you have demand for their property. So, in other words, the letter is not a technique you want to use in broadcast marketing. You don't want to cast a wide net. It can backfire on it because in the letter it's going to say in there that you have buyers and you're going to name one specifically. So, okay, this is Melanie. Melanie says, what do you suggest, WordPress or Wix, and why? Melanie, for your own website, I just suggest WordPress. And it has nothing against Wix. It's just that WordPress is like industry standard. And I mean, so many people use it. The web developers use it. Almost everything you do where you customize, almost everybody's using WordPress. I'm sure Wix is a great tool. And if you're comfortable with it, certainly use it. But WordPress is just kind of an industry standard, widely recognized, widely accepted. And also, if you decide to change, website platforms or hosts, it's the content is easily transferable. You just save it, and you can reload it at any new website you create. Okay, so that's the only reason why, Billy. I'm not suggesting don't use Wix at all. It's just that our experience has always been with WordPress. It's been very, very good and very, very adaptable. Okay, all right, back to blogs. Blog is just simply you writing a essay or a quick article, if you will, on a particular subject. Maybe a news item came out that was controversial. The Treasury Department is raising interest rates, and we think it's going to damage the housing market. You could write a blog on that. Or let's say, the one of the government programs for refinancing is being withdrawn because it's no longer necessary, and we think that might harm the market or have a negative impact on the real estate marketplace. You could write a blog about that. A blog is simply, you're writing about a particular subject. It could be completely opinion-based, or it could be instructional. I tend to like instructional blogs because I think most people, when you write an opinion blog, it may evoke a response. People will agree or disagree with you, and it's a one-time shot. Whereas with an instructional blog, it creates a little bit of loyalty and stickiness, because in your blog you can say, hey, the next blog I write is going to be about, how do you analyze a flip, or how do you analyze a rental, or how do you screen a tenant. So you can always promote the next blog that's also instructional, and you create a series of contacts that creates rapport and eventually puts you in a position to ask for business. Okay, but I love blogs. They're easy to do. You can do one in about 15 minutes typically. Just do one once a week. That's all you do. Just, if it takes a half hour, it takes a half hour, but it's only once a week. So I love blogs. Okay, the last technique, and we actually kind of covered it, is YouTube videos. By the way, back to blogs. I neglected to mention this. Blogs are very easily used with other techniques. In other words, you can combine a blog with your website. Obviously, you would post a blog on your website. That obviously makes sense. And by the way, Melanie, you can use WordPress to create your blog. Okay, so definitely combine your website with the use of a blog. You can also in a blog, you could refer to a YouTube video and actually link to a YouTube video, which we'll talk about next. Okay, and also when you create a blog, you can promote it on your Facebook page. You can promote it on LinkedIn, and you can promote it on a tweet through Twitter. So that's the thing about a blog, boy. It's one of the greatest, most easily promotable tools you have because you can promote it from so many different sources. And those are just some examples. You can probably come up with your own examples of how to promote your blog. Okay. So, any case, the next technique is YouTube videos, and we kind of touched on it earlier, but the reason I really like YouTube videos so much is it's audio and visual. People don't have to read anything. So many people today it's not that they're opposed to reading, it's just they don't want to take the time to do it. They would rather watch a 60-second or a 30-second YouTube video that gives them everything they need to know about a particular property. So it's a great technique to promote properties for sale. You can also use it to promote rentals. Places that are, if you have your rentals or your clients have rentals, you can promote the rental by creating a YouTube video. All right. I like using it to promote sales because I can walk through a property, show the physical characteristics of the property, and while I'm going through it, also rattle off the financials on the property. Okay. So that on your website, you can provide the financials. You can offer them as a download that people can get, and also show them the YouTube video. So it's audio, visual, and they can get pro formas or any written material on the property from your website. But the YouTube video, the thing is people are in a hurry. And it's so adaptable. They can watch them on their phone. They can even put the phone down and listen to the audio. But more importantly, people will watch it even if they're driving. They can save it. Okay, there's a number of things they can do with it, but more importantly, they can actually share it. So your YouTube video, if you've seen them go viral. You could put a YouTube video out there, and it doesn't just have to be for promoting properties. You can use a YouTube video to also be instructional. You can actually show people the cash flow worksheet in our training manual, and show them how to use the cash flow worksheet right there in a YouTube video. Great technique to help get clients engaged with you. It's awesome. Now let me check here real quick and make sure I've actually got all the questions so far, because we're running up on 8 o'clock here in another minute or so. So if you have more questions, guys, go ahead and type them in. I'm going to go ahead and not introduce any other material, because we've reviewed all the main marketing techniques, and we've provided examples of how they can be combined with each other. And I hope that gives you a little bit to think about, something to spark your imagination and your creativity. And I'd love to hear your ideas for your own, for combining them on your own. Okay. Okay, let me go back here. I think I just saw something come in. Okay. This is Margaret. Hi, Margaret. Margaret says, I'm working on using the letter for circle prospecting around a lot of listings near me. Any tips? Yes, you do have to be careful, Margaret. If you're using the letter in an area, let's say it sounds like you're using it in more of a traditional sense. So I want to be clear on that first. Using a letter for circle prospecting is more of a traditional technique. So what you want to do, Margaret, is before you send the letters out, go online and double check and make sure that those addresses are not on the MLS system. If they're currently active or pending, you should not mail that letter to them unless you put in the bottom of the letter, Margaret, the phrase, and you can quote this, it's pretty close to being exact. In the very bottom, you have a disclosure. And what you want to say is, if you're currently under contract with another real estate agent This letter is not intended to solicit your business. Something like that, because if you don't do that, you could be accused from another agent of interfering with the contract. Okay, you don't want to do that. So, in any case, what I do, Margaret, is wherever there's activity in circle of prospecting, you want to contact the people in the 25 most immediately accessible homes around that property. So let's say you've got a property that's not yours, but it's advertised for sale at 123 Main Street. It's on a corner. You want to take the 25 homes that are closest to that. It could be 30, it could be 20, it could be 35, whatever the case is, and send your letter to them. Or what I suggest, Margaret, is if you don't mind doing this, the weather is warming up. It's beautiful up in New England this time of year. Is go out on Saturday morning and hand deliver the letter. Now, the trick there is, Margaret, is you don't want to go to every single house. You only want to go approach the people who are already outdoors or the garage is open, okay, or they're in the backyard. In other words, they're already outdoors and accessible. And you walk up, introduce yourself, and say, "Hi, I'm Margaret Testa. I'm an agent in the area, and I see that there's other listings available out here, so I thought I'd do some research, and I wanted to give this to you." And then just strike up a conversation. If you go to a house and they're not there, you can certainly leave your letter. Don't leave it in the mailbox. Leave it in the storm door, because it's illegal to leave something in a mailbox unless it's U.S. mail. But leave it in a storm door. And if you go to the storm door, by the way, and the main door is open, and as you walk up, somebody is inside and sees you and waves at you, then stand there and wait for them to come get you. Now you can have a conversation. Nothing wrong with that. So that's a couple of things to think about, Margaret. Let's see here. What else you saying here? Okay, I'm doing it around a coworker's listing. Very hot listing, had 9 offers and went for more than 40 over asking. Well, that is awesome. Neighbors say steady stream of agents in and out. Okay, yep, that sounds like must be a desirable neighborhood. So I would definitely use that. Okay, let's see. Margaret says, okay, yes. Hang on one second. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I got your other question here, Margaret. Yes, traditional, and I do have the disclaimer. Jason requires it. Awesome. Yeah. And by the way, tell Jason I said hello, Margaret. I didn't get to see him at Lake Tahoe this year. He wasn't there. I believe he had a baby, and hopefully I'll see him again at one of the other future Go Bundes events. But Margaret, if you want to also, give me a call if you want to. Thursday night, I'm driving. I have to drive from Hilton Head to Miami, and I've got to do it that night because I've got to be there the very next day. So I'll have all kinds of time on the road. If you want to talk one-on-one and we can go over circle prospecting in more detail, just let me know. I'd be glad to do it. You've got my number, and if you don't, just shoot me a text message or email, and I'll email. If you got my text message, obviously you got my number. So, okay, will do. I should see him tomorrow. Well, thank you very much for doing that. Okay, great questions, guys. I appreciate that. I love it when you ask questions. It tells me you're engaged. And I want to get your feedback, too. I want to find out if tonight you like this, because what I realize is we've given you a lot in the last 3 months. And, there's no way you can do it all in the next year. We recognize that. We just want to give you everything that you can choose from, have you pick one, and then let us know, and we'll help you launch the campaign. But more importantly, I didn't want you guys to ever think that these are all standalone techniques and just linear in nature. They absolutely can be combined with each other, and that was my main objective for tonight, was to review, to remind you all that's available. Number 1. Number 2 is show you how you can combine them together. So I hope that worked. And number 3, let you know again, the next 4 weeks we're going to be going over the classroom technique, which is one of the most powerful techniques you can use in getting clients. Okay, so. In any case, let's see here. I'll check for questions one more time. Let's see. This is from Katina. Katina says, yes, this was good and helpful. Where can I find your sample blogs? Oh, hi, Katina. Yeah, Katina, if you go to myinvestmentservices.com, look on there for the blogs, and you'll see probably a dozen or so that are out there at any one time. And you can just copy them and use them all you want. Okay. Also, Katina, once you get through module 4, make sure you give me a call so we can I want you to pick whatever campaign you want to do, and we can help you get started there. Okay. All right, folks, good night. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I'll look for you next week. Again, that is going to be Tuesday night. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of this week and weekend. And may God bless you in all that you do. Okay, have a good night.